Welcome, guys, to another episode of A1 Agents. My name is Nick Sakha, and I've got a good friend, somebody I've known for a couple of years now, Mr. Andy Archer. Andy is the National Sales Director for TeamHired, which is a well-known insurance recruiting firm founded by two mega agency owners. And honestly, it's the only way that I hire. If you guys follow my channel, you follow my content, you guys know that I've talked about them before. It's the only way that I have hired since 2019, back when it was in person. Right now, they've pivoted into virtual interviews. And Andy's a former sales and marketing manager for Grant Cardone, which is a pretty big deal. He's a true sales professional. He's directly responsible for over $10 million in B2B sales. My man has over 150,000 cold calls that he's made over the last 6 years. I'll save more of your resume for you, but we've really truthfully connected via TeamHired, over the last couple of years. And so I'm excited to be your friend, and I'm grateful to have you on this video, adding value to my audience. So if you could, Andy, share a little bit about who you are with my audience.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Nick, for the introduction. And, I first learned of you through our founder, Dave. And, for those of you who don't know Dave Williams, who's a $20+ million a year Allstate agent that started scratch. And when I came into the, hiring and recruiting space with TeamHired, one of the first names that he actually brought up that I needed to get to know was you. He's like, hey, this is somebody who's out there making moves and doing things in the industry. You should get to know him. So it's been a great time getting to know you, and also just to kind of hear the stories of what you've done with different agents and, leading by example. I even see you on TikTok pretty frequently, which I have a huge respect for, you being progressive in that way and out there doing new things. Just to, I guess, add a little bit of color to what, you had laid out on my past is sort of currently what I'm doing at TeamHired. On a day-to-day basis, we will work with literally hundreds of agencies across the country. And so a majority of our time is spent directly recruiting, right? Running job ads, running interviews, using our way to get talent in front of our clients. The other big portion of my time and our time as a company is actually just working with agency owners on the structure of their agency, because no matter how good you are at actually getting somebody to take your job, whether you retain them or not is going to be dependent on a lot of factors. And so we spend a lot of time preparing agencies for what it looks like to hire somebody new in 2022 and not experience sort of this horrendous level of turnover that people have reported. And so, I've been a part of that, but definitely not the inventor of it. I've learned a lot from our two owners, both former insurance agency owners, as well as just working with our clients. So I'd say, what I've been specializing in lately and spending a lot of my time doing is working with people on the types of team they should structure out, or helping them make strategic decisions on their compensation plan, or looking at the way that they license or onboard new employees so that they don't turn them over in the first month of employment, and can retain them to actually give them a shot at being a valuable team member. So that's where a lot of our time has gone as a company, because we're really focused on solving the problem. And sometimes the problem is getting candidates, and other times the problem is keeping candidates, and they both go hand in hand. So happy to talk about any of that with you today, Nick. But that's a more of what I've been up to lately, is really spending time on those processes.
Yeah. So not just helping agents with finding people and staffing their agencies, but helping them with a lot more. Very awesome. So
Yep.
I have a question. I think that when I first met Dave Williams and I first gave TeamHired a shot, I was like, all right, this is really cool because a bunch of people just show up to my office. I did nothing, right? I did nothing. And this is back when it was in person. And so like, I'll never forget the first set of interviews, group interviews that TeamHired set up for me. There's like 20 people in my office, and I only have like a 1,200 square foot, office at the time. And so people, I'm like pulling chairs out of nowhere, computer chairs, desk, like I'm just like, all right, have a seat. You guys stand there. I'm gonna get you guys water. And then I put them in a little circle, and none of them know this is a group interview, right? But what it did was it created this like competitiveness amongst everyone, right? Now, some people walked in, they're like, well, this is a group interview, I'm out of here, right? And like they dipped, but it's cool. I don't want people like that anyways. But I thought that that was so much different than my old way of hiring, which was, booking, 10 interviews and then like 2 people, 3 people showing up. And for those of you probably know that the statistics are probably still the same, maybe even worse in the last couple of years. And I just thought it was the coolest experience. And so I say that because not a lot of people know what TeamHired does or provides, but that was my first experience. And the busier I get, I just didn't have, I don't have time to like call these candidates and then only to, just that numbers game. Right. And so I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
And then, of course, come 2020, it changes. It's all virtual and the whole game's changed. And I just can't say enough good things about TeamHired. It's like it's not like you guys are paying me or anything to say this. Like I legitimately, like, if you guys cut me, man, TeamHired's gonna come out of my blood. So I just appreciate some of my best hires have come from you guys. And so it's just really awesome. Now, with that being said,
Awesome.
What hiring is something that we always need to be doing. And if you're not, you're gonna get caught with your pants down. Right? You're gonna get caught like, man, because I firmly believe that employees leave, they can quit, they can take other opportunities. It happens all the time. And we shouldn't be surprised when it happens. Like we just need to be proactive. So that way we aren't fazed by it, I would say. But with that being said, what advice do you have for agency owners regarding hiring? I know it's kind of like a very broad question, but what advice do you have for agencies or people that are hiring? What are some hiring tips, aha moments that you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we probably can't hit on everything, but I'm going to pull out some of the key points here. Number one, I mean, for any of your audience listening to this, whether they don't like, would use or not use kind of our method of hiring, I think one of the biggest things that we need to understand is like the environment is very different in 2022 from a statistical standpoint. And I like to start with numbers to understand why is hiring more difficult now than it was maybe 2 years ago. And I was actually a client of TeamHired's as well while living in Las Vegas. Our office was 5 minutes from your office, and I was sick of spending time with no shows and low quality people. And I had spent 6 weeks trying to hire on my own. And the thing that I didn't recognize at the time that Dave has helped me understand now is that probably cost our business 20 to 30 grand in missed opportunity, my time, and the job ad costs that didn't result in a hire. So by the time I got a hold of TeamHired, it was like, put me out of my misery, put me out of my pain, because I've wasted 6 weeks and I'm no further along in my hiring process. So one of the first things is setting your expectations on a shorter time frame. If you don't understand some of these statistics, it's going to be very difficult for you to operate, let's say on like a job board, for instance. And let's just use that example, Nick. If you're right now spending money on Indeed, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, Facebook to run job ads, one of the first things you got to understand is that there's about a third as many candidates applying to jobs now as pre-pandemic, but there's more than double the number of job postings. So you've got far fewer prospects, far more jobs, which means more companies than ever are going to be let down on their hiring goal for this month. Now, all of those employers will probably make hires for the job boards, but they might need to be there a lot longer. And why is that mechanically? Well, mainly it's because when you or I go to a job board and we spend money on that job board, what we end up doing is getting a placement somewhere on that page. And that placement is going to be found by actual candidates who are searching things in that area. Maybe they search sales, maybe they search insurance agency, maybe they search customer care. And part of that strategy is being diverse and making sure that you're incorporating a lot of keywords across your job posts so that when people search, they may not search your exact job title. They may not search your exact job description. So very important to diversify, but also important to understand that the same day that you sign up for a job ads account and post a new job ad, there's 100 companies behind you that are going to do the same thing. And somebody has to take that first page. Usually it's large corporate accounts, sponsored ads, or it's the newest person to sign up. So if you think you could just post a job ad and walk away and let that thing run for a month and like, oh, I'll just show up every day and check my applicants. If you're not getting applicants, which we talk to thousands of agencies, it's very common to spend hundreds in a week and get very few applicants. Why? Well, that's happening because your job post isn't being seen. It's basically too crowded of a space. You're on the strip in Las Vegas with a handout card to come to your nightclub. And there's 100 nightclubs and 100 guys handing out postcards. So chances you get people to show up at your club, it's a lot skimmer than it used to be. So the initial problem, back to like pre-2020 when you were first a client, was we had no problem getting applicants. Nobody did. I'm sure you would run job ads and get 300 to 500 people in a week or two,
Oh
easy.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then the problem was time management. How do I get to all these people? And using group interviews can help with that. But the other side of it is you have to be actively on top of your job every single day, refreshing job ads. If something's not working, I'm not going to spend $50 on a job ad that's produced 5 applicants in the last week. I mean, I can't afford to do that. Number one. Number two, the time involved on no shows or wasting time on hiring with no volume, it's a dead strategy. So to fix that, there's a couple different ways. Number one, you can use a large company. You could use like a TeamHired or somebody else, where we generally have much larger ad spend as a company at scale. So Nick advertises by himself versus Nick spends the money with TeamHired and we advertise for you. Is we're going to come in with much more of a heavy hammer into that space because we understand it. We spend millions of dollars with those companies, and forget TeamHired for a second, right? In general, going out to a third party gives you that advantage that you might not get spending $50 a day on your own. But what if you don't want to do that or you can't afford to do that, right? Which, real quick, side note, we would say you can't afford not to hire, right? Like you're already costing yourself money. But let's just say you're like, I can't do the third party thing. I've only got $500 to spend. I need to hire now. Well, what I would do is I would post multiple job ads and I'd be on them every single day. And then I would treat every single applicant no different than a hot insurance lead. Like you guys know that, like we talk about exclusive insurance leads. Does it exist, right? There's a big debate. Does it actually exist? Is there such a thing as an exclusive insurance lead? Well, I don't think really there probably is. We could have that discussion some other time, but it's like, what about candidates? How do I go out there and actually like treat these candidates different and treat them like they were an exclusive lead? Well, if there were a true exclusive lead that's like, I want to do business with the Nick Sakha agency, I've got a business, 10 homes, and 5 vehicles, somebody from your office who saw that lead should be sprinting towards the phone. If they don't get them on the phone, they should be sending text messages. If they don't get them via text, they should be calling them again, leaving a voicemail, finding them on social media. So what I see is people aren't treating their candidate database with the same respect that they treat their sales database, but it deserves just as much respect, if not more.
That's deep.
So yeah, you want to look at those applicants as a lead, like an insurance lead. They're a prospect of a potential team member. It's a big deal. So offloading them and making sure that you have processes to say, I will work these like a lead database, and I'm not going to stop at one phone call. I'm not going to call somebody and leave a voicemail, one of 50 applicants. They call me back, but I'm at dinner, so I missed their call, and I'm just too lazy to call them back. Like every candidate really counts. And so that's going to be a good starting point for this discussion is like, make sure that you're, going deep. If you need 8 phone calls in on a candidate, and you need to send a text and you need to send them a video via bombbomb.com or something, like that's what's required in 2022. And that's why people use us or invent their own processes, because it used to be, I get 300 applicants, I make 1 phone call each to all of them, I figure out who I like, I've got 20 interviews in the next week, and boom, I can hire 5 people. Nowadays, candidates disappear, they ghost, they're not as committed. Why?
They have options.
Exactly. They have options. So like way more job posts, way less candidates. If I'm a candidate right now, I'm in heaven. I'm looking around and I'm taking a look at the entire marketplace right now going, wow, I can get into companies at pay rates that I couldn't have gotten 2 years ago just because they're more open-minded, right? They're more open-minded. They're not going to be so particular on who they hire. So that's the first piece of it, Nick, is like understanding that and understanding that letting job ads just die and just sit there, you're just literally throwing away hundreds or thousands of dollars a month. if you're not working them like a sales pipeline, if you're not refreshing job ads, if you're not trying different job titles every single day, and that'll help you compete. That's going to help you stay up there toward higher on the job board. You're going to get more bang for your buck. And like, if I invest $500 on insurance leads and you do as well, but you only call every lead twice, but I call them 10 times and send them a gift basket, I'm
Right.
going to make more sales than you. But this is what people do with candidates every day. They treat it like it's a leftover. It's not a leftover. This is ad dollars.
And you know what? It's pretty deep. You know, I remember that when because I like I said, I do two things for hiring right now. Whenever I know I need at least two people, I get TeamHired involved. When I need one,
Yep.
I will make social media posts, and I'm making that post sadly like every month, like I will pay somebody $500 or I'll pay somebody $1,000 if you refer me my next candidate that sticks for 90 days. So, but that what works for me may not work for the average person. And I say that just because I've built a very strong brand where people know my agency culture that looks fun,
It's
right?
like
I'm posting all the
magnetic.
time. Yeah. And so people like, hey, I think you'd have fun here. It looks like they have a lot of fun, blah, 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 blah. But those social media posts, unless you are building a brand, it might not be as effective, right? Like some of my strongest people have come from personal referrals, and also TeamHired. Like personal referrals and TeamHired are my only two sources of people. But back when I used to call people, and I used to almost feel entitled that I'm calling them once, and if they don't call me back, then they just don't want it bad enough, blah, 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 blah. But what you're saying is nowadays the game has changed, and I believe it, that we need to hound these people down, especially if they're good people, so it's very interesting that you say that.
Yeah, and in that outreach, like first impressions everything. So they're trying to decide real early on, like who would I like to work for here? So a lot of times, like we can see agency owners blowing opportunities with candidates because they come in with an approach of basically, what can you do for me? And that's the whole conversation. In fact, your traditional one-on-one insurance interview with a salesperson is going to be basically 20 questions about, why they're awesome or not. And then it's going to be, well, do you have any questions for me as an afterthought? And to me, that's so crazy. And a way I described it on a call a couple weeks ago, and I was like, that's it, is that way back in the day, I'm talking not medieval times, but 1700s, 1800s, if you were to go to like Britain or Scotland, there'd be these boat yards, right? And there would be all sorts of trade ships. And some of them are going taking spices to across the ocean. Some of them are going to go out on fishing cruises for 3 months. Some of them are probably going out to kill some pirates. I don't know, but they've all got their different jobs. And a lot of the townspeople could go down and they'd pick up work at a certain season. So it's like this year I'm going to go down and I'm going to make a relationship with a fishing boat captain. We're going to go hunt whales for 6 months, and hopefully I don't die, and hopefully I make enough money to come back and feed my family. And like that's a little bit what this is like. You're essentially asking somebody to leave most of the free time they have during the waking hours of the day and come on your journey, come on your vessel to complete a mission that you invented. They didn't even invent your mission, you did, and it's your boat. And going back to Grant, like I wasn't with Grant during the COVID times. I had left in 2019. I just missed it. But I remember watching a speech a buddy sent me from their main office, and he said something along the lines of like, we're not parking the boat. I'm going to keep this boat on the water, whether you want to jump off or not. Like we're going to keep more going forward. I'll die on this boat. And that's how a lot of business owners, right? I'll die on this boat. So what I've found is the approach and that outreach when we are hounding these people, right? When we're going deep on them, whatever you can do to brand your agency as different kind of starts with you, the way in which you treat them, how you make them feel in that first 5 minutes, the level of respect that you're using or not using. Are you only asking them why they're great, or are you spending time, exemplifying why they should come work for you and join your vessel essentially? Because they are taking a risk. They're jumping on your boat, they're going out in the ocean, and they might not die, but man, nobody likes unemployment, nobody likes being fired, nobody likes wasting 6 months on the wrong job. So, my whole point to it is like this is a relationship that's yeah, it's on the premise you have the business and you have the authority that have them on payroll. But man, without people, you don't have a business. So it's a little bit more of a 50-50, I think, versus like a 90-10. And this would totally change the way you think about, let's say, licensing. If your mindset is, what can you do for me? then your attitude towards licensing is going to be, show me you have skin in the game, get your insurance license, and then you can come work for me. But if my attitude is, you're taking a risk too. You're going to be away from your family 8, 9 hours a day, and you could choose any other company. You're going to be with me to complete my mission to help me go where I'm trying to go as well. Then there better be some sort of conversation in there about what's in it for them. And that's just like interwoven into the licensing, even from a standpoint of like, I'm not going to just send somebody home and expect them to magically appear 2 weeks later with a license. I'm going to figure out how can I support them as if, my life depended on it. My vessel, my ship is, I need a crew. And if I don't have a crew, we're not going to go out and hunt whales. So I better figure out a way to convince these people that I'm the best boat at port. And there's 100 other boats, and some of them are giving away like gold coin treasure. Just they're like, come on board, I'll give you a gold coin, we'll go treasure hunting. And that actually gets people. They're like, I'll go for the sign-on bonus. So, you're competing against sign-on bonuses, 20 weeks of maternity leave from Amazon, stock options from Google. And these companies are hiring all over the place. So to compete with that, it's like the only thing you have to go by is that grit to reach out and personally invite them to, be part of that process. So yeah, I mean, just to kind of further the point on that, like I think it's huge to think of it as a relationship,
Yeah.
almost like a marriage that's about to happen versus, I don't know. I don't know how else you say it other than like, you're my employee. Dave told me early on, he's like, I don't have employees. I have team members. And that really, I think that kind of exemplifies all of it right there.
Yeah. No, it is. I think the days of not caring for your team, people can sniff that out, or caring for people, they can sniff that out. I think that there is a sense of people are interviewing us just as we're interviewing them, you know, and because
Yeah.
I'm fully aware that that when they interview with me, that they've all probably already interviewed with 2 other insurance agencies, because insurance agencies are always hiring. They're always hiring, right? And so, uh, what can I provide that stands out a little bit different? Even from just like the energy when you walk into the office, right? How do we treat them when they walk in? Does it seem like a fun office? Because most insurance offices you walk in, they're pretty boring, But not everything is over is in person anymore. Do you want to talk about? We kind of talked about a little bit earlier. Do you want to talk about hiring only licensed people, or unlicensed people, or remote people, or in-person people? I know I, for one, haven't done fully remote yet. I
Hmm.
I want somebody to work with me for 6 months before I can send them off to be remote. They got to earn that, right? But other people are crushing it. I don't think we have a choice. We almost have to offer this as an option, hire from different states. People are really crushing it with that stuff. So, you want to talk about what you're seeing on your end?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple things on that. We work with clients that do it a number of ways. We work with clients that would hire people remote and local. The variable here is whether they have a license or not, because we wouldn't typically recommend hiring somebody who's, let's say, 300 miles away, who has zero experience in the industry. They do not have a license yet. They'll need to secure that. And, basically, you're going to have to onboard them with technology, the company, everything, even to get them up to speed. That's a big enough challenge as it is in the office. So the turnover rate could be pretty rough on that. Now, for contracted based positions, things like that, I get it. But for the most part, if we're going to hire remote, we're going to recommend hiring only experienced or licensed people that have a little bit of a leg up on the training, because to plug them in, you're going to have to set them up with, and think about like the technology, right? It's like, well, they need a high speed internet connection, which might cost them $120 a month with whoever the provider is locally. Have we thought about offering an internet stipend to that team member in their decision making process on the offer, to make sure they have enough internet? They don't feel bad that they're paying their personal family internet and using it for work purposes 8 hours a day. Do they have the screen set up that do they need? Here's a fun one. Did I remember to send them a bottle of wine and some cheeses on the day they took the job, and I overnighted it with edible arrangements and said, welcome to the team. Like, we don't think about this stuff, but if we're going to manage or run a remote team, you got to start thinking with, and I only have so much influence over the culture of this person's household. I don't know what room they wake up in the morning, where their office is situated, if they have dogs, kids, whether they have a good or bad relationship with their spouse, right? Way more distractions at home than a controlled environment. So on the flip side of that, we would prefer hiring local. Um, we would prefer hiring local. And I've actually, in multiple offices, never seen even an experienced rep do as well out of the office as they'll do in the office. And I think it has to do with energy, Nick. It's like if you need to hire remote and you can find a licensed person and they're responsible enough to do that, that's fantastic. But better than that would be somebody who can walk in my doors every day and the best salespeople look at it almost like an athletic event, right? It's like they come in, it's the NFL, like it's game time. Really tough to do that at home. Totally different when I walk into an office. Doesn't matter if I got in a fight with my spouse, had a late night last night, had a good or bad sales day yesterday. We're coming in as a team and we've all agreed to be here together. So, you know, I saw a team meeting you ran with your team, right? You're bringing an energy to that team in the office that sure I could call in. I could be on video with you guys once a week for that as one of your team members. But am I going to get the same thing as sitting next to an experienced rep and hearing them on the phone all day? When I have a problem, can I solve it instantly if I'm at your office? Probably, yeah. If I'm remote, I don't know. I mean, I work remote, so I know how difficult it is sometimes to get people on the phone, chase things down. And what it does is it costs you money because things take longer, there's less time to sell. So, keeping that in mind, I think that we're doing a different dance right now in the hiring space than we were 2 years ago. And if you're set up and have the know-withal to manage somebody remotely, the idea of hiring one or two licensed people that already have experience, or I know some guys that have hired 10 like that, right? And that's fine. In the meantime, what about local? And on local, you know, hiring a licensed local person that has experience and you're not stealing them from your buddy's agency, great, right? If you can find the right person. But what we've seen, and we hire for about 4,000 agencies across the country, is we see that there's not a lot of engaged or interested local licensed people. When you just look at the numbers you have to work with in your local, let's say 15-mile radius, that when you go out and run job ads, who are you attracting? Job seekers. Are the best sales producers that I'd want to hire that have experience job seeking? No. They're working, they're making money. So I'm usually getting the B players or the C players, not the A players locally. If I want the A players locally, what I need is more time. I need probably 3 to 6 months to make the right local licensed hire. And whether you do it on your own or you pay a third party, it's going to be pretty expensive. 8, 10, 12 grand. And that's just in recruiting costs or what you need to do to get it done, because that game is not like crab fishing. You're not going to throw out a job ad and attract 100 people and interview them and hire two. What you're going to do is go out and cold pitch 100, 200, 300 experienced people and say, I know you're gainfully employed and happy, but man, check this out. I've got a better opportunity for you. And that's going to look like cold calling business owners and trying to sell them toilet paper. I mean, 90 out of 100 are going to tell you no. Most of them are going to brush you off. And you got to play that numbers game as well. So I think it's important to understand like everything has upsides, downsides, but it's understanding what's going to be the best for your business. So you could hire a couple remote people to supplement some production, but keep 80% of your office just right where it is and keep it in-house, in office. You could go out and you could hire somebody locally and licensed if you got 3 to 6 months to work with and some money, But if you're trying to hire somebody local in a short time frame, like under a month, the only way that we've found to do it is by hiring mainly non-licensed people and then setting very clear expectations that they need to get licensed to have this opportunity, and then not expecting them to just do the license on their own, but actually making it almost like a natural part of the hiring process. So, in terms of like, hey, if you come on board, we're going to provide you with training. We'll give you a coach. We'll give you material. We will be here to support you and you will succeed. And people, a lot of times over the years, have not approached it that way. It's if you get your license, right, then you've secured a position with me. Go to any other company in America, right? Even go in your city, Nick, and just you go to businesses and look at what they offer. The only industry other than insurance that doesn't offer to pay training is real estate. They'll expect you to get your real estate license on your own. Every real estate agent that I know is a contractor. Yet we're in the insurance industry hiring W-2 employees full time that are supposed to carry us to $200,000 to $400,000 a year in premium. So I'm going to treat this person as if I hired them at eBay, if I hired them at the Raiders to be on my training staff. Like, hey, you're a new hire. First thing we do is we get you licensed. It's a 2-week process. You come in my office. You're going to sit down. We're going to cover you up with material. I'll have a coach working with you. And after 2 weeks, we're going to take the exam. If you fail it, I'm not going to fire you. We're just going to figure out what you went wrong on. We're going to drink some more Red Bull and we're going to go back and do it again a week later. And it's just this attitude that you rub off on them that like you got this versus if you do this, like you'll be qualified to work for me is going back to that sort of 90-10 approach of like, you got to do everything for me. And unfortunately, we just haven't seen that work out real well. So
Yeah.
anyway, I want to turn it back to you, but those are kind of the three different areas that we look at in terms of like what options you have right now.
I will tell you that my strategy has changed with the times, especially over the last couple of years. It has, I used to very much just tell people, go and get licensed, right? I meet them
Yep.
halfway. I'll pay for your, I'm sorry, and I've changed over and over and over again. Some of the lessons I have learned, I've gotten it to a T right now, and I think it's pretty good right now, which is, unless I'm using TeamHired's boot camp, which is really amazing. I'm 1-for-1 with somebody, like they passed their first shot, right?
Oh,
So
good.
a week and a half, he passed his first shot, and it was amazing. However, with hires, I will typically say, you meet me halfway, because I was getting burned a lot by paying for people's study materials, right? And then their test, and then they just ghost me or fall through the cracks or take it once, fail, and then I never hear from them. So I
Hmm.
figured out this recipe right now that kind of works. If I love them and I must have them, I'm getting them on TeamHired's boot camp because I'm not going to lose this person, right?
Hmm.
And I'll pay them for that week's worth of studying. Otherwise, most of the time, I will make them pay the $100 for Kaplan, the $50 for their test, and I say, you pay for this, you meet me halfway, I will reimburse you that $150 as soon as you pass, and I will then turn around and pay for your fingerprints and your state license. And that has worked out. It's like, you meet me halfway, because if they fall through the cracks, it's like, hey, no loss of my own, right? Like I didn't pay for, but I opened my third office, and
Smart.
I was in a huge hiring, like I needed people for this third office. I brought on so many people, and I did what I normally don't do, which is pay them to study. And I can't tell you how many of them, not only did I have to pay them for that week or week and a half that they were there, but they weren't on the boot camp. They weren't effectively studying. They were failing the test, and then they just ghost me. And then I'm like, oh my goodness. So not only am I out, the study materials, and I paid them for a week, and then they felt the cracks. So lessons learned. But another big lesson that I learned was what you kind of alluded to right before, just what you just alluded to, which is a proper onboarding process. Like, from seed to supplement, this is what happens next. And there's a game plan in depth. And when you go to any other job, you're right. Like, it's laid out. This is what the next 2 weeks are going to look like specifically. And when you leave any room for any question marks in that process, or if you communicate any, it's a big move for someone to try a new industry, especially when you're grinding them during the interview process, talking about you know what I mean, what are you like. Some of the questions I ask are, this is like not meant for everybody. This is not meant for everybody, right? You see this phone, you're going to be on 80% of the time, 90% of the time. It's a grind. Only the strongest survive, right? Like, they want
Yeah,
certainty.
100%.
They want certainty in this decision. And so if we don't give them that certainty by a proper onboarding process, then they will look for it elsewhere, right? They'll go to these big companies. So, wow,
And
you're
it's like
dropping.
lack of confidence, right, Nick? Like it's like I come into this company, they sell me on the dream, yet there's a broken onboarding process. I'm going,
Yeah.
here's a phrase I learned from Grant's director, and it is everything equals everything. And funny story with it, real quick, is that I was in my first month at Grant's office, second story, North Miami Beach. The beach is beautiful, but I'm in here making 250 calls a day. People are telling me to F off, just really rough. Um, got my Red Bull, no bathroom breaks, right? Because I go down the bathroom break, and the senior guy's like, "You sold any deals today? Why are you going to the bathroom?" It was just this bizarre world to me. Um, and I had an apple that I'd eaten half of, and I had it on my desk. And our director walked up and picked it up, and he threw it in my trash can and walked away. I was like, what's going on? I don't know if I can tell this story. He later, when I asked him about it in that day, said, if you can't finish an apple, how can you finish a $30,000 deal? I'm confused. I stared at him and I was thinking to myself, what? And he's like, I bet if I walked in your car right now, it would look a lot like your pipeline. Again, I'm like, what? And I'm a new guy and he's trying to set something, he's trying to make an impact in my mind, which that was 6 years ago. And I still remember it like it was yesterday. And his whole point was, and I learned over the years there and since then, that everything truly does equal everything. The way you do one thing is the way
Mhm.
you'll do everything. And if there's things that are easy to do, they're also easy not to do, like brushing your teeth, right? And so when you start to look at like that psychology, it is really important in that onboarding phase that you instill confidence and that you're like, if you can't show your best of the best in the first 2 weeks, what's the next 2 years going to look like? No different than a new client for you guys. You guys sign up a new policy. They have an issue on the credit card form, and one of your team members needs to get a hold of them to get that deal secured. If that goes poorly, if it's not clean communication, they never call them back, they maybe were rude to them on the phone, they're probably going to walk out and do business with some other agency because it's
Yeah.
like, man, if you guys are screwing up my first couple weeks, what's the rest of this thing going to look like? So anyway, long story short, I think that it's important to like inspect that. And if you do have a broken onboarding process, like there's ways to solve that. People can get a hold of me. I've got a plan I can give them, and it breaks down the first 90 days, and it is about integrating all of the training that they need to do without overwhelming them. So what we like to see is variety, and we like to have a game plan. Like, hey, during your first week, each day is going to be very calculated. You'll spend the first hour, filling out paperwork. The second hour, like literally down to the hour. The second hour, we're going to have you over with, Meredith shadowing her. She's our top producer. She's going to bring you up to speed on our CRM. Then we're going to have you start filling out some quote sheets and referral sheets for your internal referrals or whatever. But it's like, you got to have a plan for people or they lose confidence in the whole process as a whole, or they're just like, is this a startup? This
Yeah.
feels like a startup. I don't want to work at a startup. I need a stable job.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's levels to this, man. I mean,
There's levels.
I made a YouTube video just last year, I think, about my broken onboarding process. And here I
Mhm.
am, 5 years into my 4.5 years into my agency, realizing that, okay, there's some things I can improve on, right? And so, new agents, hopefully people watching this video, you're learning, you're taking notes, because we are a small business, but we have to, we have to treat it like we're a mega corporation if we want to win, and we want to attract those type of people. Because you're right, the best of the best aren't looking around for jobs.
Yeah.
So, well, awesome, man, dude. Well, you've dropped already so many gems, man. And so I want to wrap this up. How can people connect with you, find you if they need a resource for any sort of hiring? How do they contact you? How do they get a hold of you? I know you're on social media, so
Yep.
what is it?
So it's Andy Arter, ANDYARTER. I'm on Facebook, on LinkedIn. I was on the TikTok, but I had to close down that account. It was a non-business related account, and TikTok's wild, man. I got like 20,000 followers real quick, and then there was a violation on a video that shouldn't have been violated. But once they shut you down, you're just gone. So who knows? I might need to start a new TikTok account here shortly. But I'd say the best way, Nick, is probably just to reach out to me directly via my email, Andy at TeamHired.com. I'll give you guys my scheduling link. So there's a URL you can go to. It'll
What
just
I'll do is I will put that in the caption of this
oh,
video.
in here.
Yeah. So if you can
Cool.
shoot that over to me, I'll put all your social media plugs, your email, and a calendar thing, so that way they can, book maybe just a call with you.
Perfect. Yeah, and at the end of the day, like whether you do hiring with TeamHired or not, I wake up every day just like, where can I give value? Where can I love on people? Really, like we need people to band together right now and give as much as they can, and that's how we rise out of tough moments. And I think that for anybody that wants us to take a look at your comp plan, like, hey, is this competitive in my market? Or you want to get a hold of us and talk about your staffing structure, or you just want some more advice on any of this. Like, we don't need to engage just on hiring, and I'm more than happy to help. So absolutely, anybody can reach out anytime.
And Andy has, I mean, he's one of your mentors, I'm pretty sure, is Dave. and Dave is somebody I've admired for a very long time. You know, Dave is, since
Same.
I started in this industry, he's just a good human being, and somebody, like I said, he all business aside, he's just a good human, and he's done it. He built. I used to call him the goat, you know, before. I used to call him the goat because how fast he scaled his agencies. I mean, he grew a $20 million book in no time, and so that's very respectable. So so you're getting a lot of what you know from someone that's done it for, insurance agents and things like that. So um
Yep.
awesome, man. Well, Andy, I appreciate your time, brother. And I'm gonna put all your information in the show notes. So guys, get with Andy if you need any advice, any help. So we appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Nick, thank you.